Hey, this video is part of our Vitamix 101 course.
Yeah, you can buy this course where you'll get the recipes, shopping lists, quizzes to test your knowledge, support from us, and lifetime access.
Otherwise, you can keep watching for free on YouTube. Either way, happy blending. Bye.
All right, welcome back. Remember how when we were talking about nut butters, how you had to be careful with preparation and make sure you had the right ingredients? Well, frozen desserts are the exact opposite. It couldn't be easier. Just throw in some frozen fruit, blend, and go. Now, each frozen fruit has a different consistency and flavor that's going to impact blending time and ratios, but mastering each comes with experience, and you'll get there. So let's focus on today. After today's lesson and the recipe you're going to make, you're going to be comfortable making frozen desserts that have the perfect texture and consistency every time, that satisfy the sweetest sweet tooths without any added sugar, and that you can serve next time you entertain, both pre-portioned and on the fly. To accomplish these goals, we're going to discuss three things. One, fruit options. What's a good fruit to use to make these frozen desserts? Two, the other ingredient. What else are we adding to the recipe? And three, we're going to discuss the template. How do we make amazing frozen desserts with basically whatever we have available? All right, first things first, fruit options. When making frozen desserts, the key is probably obvious: frozen fruit. You can freeze your own or buy prepackaged ones from your grocer's freezer. Certainly, fresh bought fruit from a local farmer's market, washed and frozen, is going to be the best, freshest, healthiest, and probably the most environmentally friendly. But if you're like me and want to buy a huge bag from Costco, totally fine too. Now let's talk options. I've had a lot of luck with berries and tropical fruit. But really, anything that does not have a high water content, like oranges, grapefruit, watermelon, are going to be great to mix and match. So what about the other ingredient? We're not just using frozen fruit, right? Well, you have a couple options for the other ingredient. Option one is yogurt. If you use yogurt as the other ingredient, you're going to get something that's very similar to what you'd get at Pinkberry, a frozen yogurt. If you want to use yogurt as your other ingredient, I highly recommend using a yogurt that was not derived from cow's milk. Why? Basically, it's not your healthiest option. Yogurts made from soy milk, coconut milk, even almond milk are just better. Anything non-dairy. If yogurt isn't your thing, option two for your other ingredient is milk. Now, as I've said before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, or a dead cow, but go for a dairy-free option. Soy milk, coconut milk, almond milk, that's going to be your healthiest choice. Whether you use yogurt or milk as your other ingredient, your frozen desserts are going to taste great. But there's one thing you got to keep in mind. These products generally have a lot of added sugar. Why? Well, sugar makes things taste better, and it allows them to be marketed as low fat, for example. So while you might have chosen a dairy-free version, it still might be loaded with sugar. So do your best to find a product without. If your frozen dessert isn't sweet enough for you, you can always add something natural like honey, dates, or agave nectar to sweeten it up. So that's the other ingredient, either milk or yogurt. And that completes the template: frozen fruit plus a liquid. Specifically, 1 pound of frozen fruit to 1 cup of liquid. Now, some fruits are sweeter than others, and assuming you used unsweetened other ingredient, you may want to add some natural sweetener to sweeten it up. Then the sky's the limit. You can enjoy it as is or spruce it up. Coconut, shredded coconut, chocolate chips, nuts. You can add whatever you like during the blend or after. So with this simple template, you should be able to make all natural, whole food, frozen desserts in minutes, anytime. So before we make one for ourselves, there's one thing we have to review, and that's the tamper. The tamper. Just like with nut butters, when we make frozen dessert, we're going to use the tamper to gently push the ingredients down into the blade to get us a more efficient blend. So from a technique perspective, there's 3 things to remember. First of all, the tamper will never touch the blade. When you have the lid on, it's impossible for it to make contact. Thing 2, use the tamper to push the ingredients from the corners into the center. And thing 3 is that when you make frozen desserts, you should always use the tamper. Okay, so we've almost completely exhausted our conversation on frozen desserts. But before we actually make one, as usual, I have a few bonus tips. In this case, all of the bonus tips have to do with serving your frozen dessert. So bonus tip number 1, you can serve it right away, straight out of the Vitamix, and the consistency will be just great. Bonus tip number 2, if you're looking for some presentation points and want a frosty layer on the outside of your frozen dessert, pre-portion it, put it in the freezer for 5 minutes, and then serve. All right, finally, bonus tip number 3, if you're entertaining and are gonna make frozen desserts beforehand, do this. Pre-portion them, put them in the freezer, and when you're ready to serve, 5 minutes before, take them out to thaw. But just remember this, put them in the freezer in individual scoops. Trying to serve from one giant frozen lump of frozen dessert is nearly impossible to get the texture and consistency you're looking for. All right, so that's everything you need to know about making frozen desserts in your Vitamix. So when you're ready, mark this unit complete, head on over to the next, and we'll do a demonstration.
Hey, it's Lenny Gill with Life is No Yoke. Every new subscriber we get, I get a gray hair.
And I like salt and pepper. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
That is TLC. It's not salt and pepper. Where were you in the 90s?
I was like 7 when that came out.